Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a little bit different from my normal content, and that is because I recently just finished my phlebotomy program. So today I wanted to make a video about what to expect if you are planning on going into phlebotomy. So I'm going to break this video down into a couple of sections. First, we have the process of signing up for your phlebotomy class, pricing, we have what to expect on your first day, requirements for your class, and the final practical. A little bit of background is that I'm currently in college and I'm studying to be a medical laboratory scientist, and a very small portion of the job, it's really just like a clinical rotation that we do, but it is a skill that we're required to have, is phlebotomy. I feel like it's a good stepping stone into the healthcare industry. A lot of medical laboratory science isn't as patient facing. Phlebotomy is a good way to kind of have like a patient facing experience, if that makes sense. I did do a little bit of research on different programs, and I ended up going with phlebotomy training specialists. This video is primarily going to focus around if you choose to participate in a phlebotomy training specialist course. So the signing up process. So it's super simple. They really just require you to have a high school diploma and proficiency in English and reading. So now for the next section, which would be pricing. I don't know like if for each state the pricing differs, but for me, our phlebotomy course ended up being $975. Price of $975 does include the cost of tuition, which is like the materials. It includes the cost of holding your seat, like registration, and it includes the cost of the NHCO exam. Oh yeah, and it includes the price of your textbook as well. Comparing that price to other phlebotomy courses, it is actually relatively on the lower end. Usually phlebotomy courses can range from like $900 to even upwards of $2,000, and so that's just something to consider while you are looking for different courses. I'll preface this by saying our program was only a 3-week program, so it was technically an accelerated program, but I know some programs can last for like a couple weeks to a couple months, and so the price can differ depending on that, and so that's something to keep in mind. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that certain phlebotomy programs can offer different licensure. If you're maybe in one of the programs that lasts for longer, you'll take a different certification exam and it will give you a different certificate, or it will give you a different type of license. For phlebotomy training specialists, we actually take the NHCO, which is the National Health Career Certification Organization phlebotomy exam. Depending on your career goals, it'll be helpful to research or look deeper into. So that leads us to our second segment of this video, which is what to expect on your first day. So on your first day, you're kind of going to get like the rundown of your program. You'll know who to contact for like financial aid questions or registration questions. On my first day, we kind of went through the program, how long it'll last. It's a 48-hour like in total course, and we also get our textbooks. Let me show you the textbook. This is the textbook, Modern Phlebotomy. So this is a textbook that every student receives, and I will say that this textbook is a very good resource for you within your class. It covers like every fundamental pretty much of phlebotomy, and if you have any like concerns or questions, it will be in this textbook. In each chapter, which there are 14 chapters, in each chapter has your key terms, it has your objectives, and it has an assessment and a case study at the end. So you can get not only like lecture style practice, but like real world scenario practice, and that can be really good for just deepening your understanding of each topic. I recommend making like Quizlets of the key terms and using those objectives to outline your notes. That is really helpful. Additionally, in the textbook, there are 150 practice questions, which are great for studying for your certification exam. I feel like it gives you a good like understanding of the structure of the questions and what to focus your studying on. When you register for your phlebotomy course, they'll send you emails with a whole bunch of different resources, and one of those resources was a schedule of the 12 classes, because the courses, at least for the class that I chose, it was split into 12 different classes, and so each module or class had like an overview of the day and an overview of what chapters you'll be going over in the textbook. On the first day, we started chapters 1 through 3, I believe. Chapters 1 through 3 are kind of like introductory and like safety. On your first day, expect to go over, it's kind of like syllabus week or like syllabus day. Expect to go over your student resources, your schedule, and the first like 3 chapters of the textbook. I'm just gonna interject and say, in regards to dress code, you're required to wear scrubs. You can wear like a regular top, but you are required to at least have scrub bottoms and closed-toed shoes. So before your first day of class, just be sure to have at least 1 pair of scrubs. Now I'm going to kind of go over like the remainder of the course, and I will preface this by saying within this course you are required to not only practice on your classmates but on yourself. The first thing that you will do in regards to like hands-on experience is capillary sticks, which is something that you'll learn in chapter 6, and so you can kind of go according to your schedule. You can think of it as like how you would check your blood sugar if you're diabetic, kind of like that. So like it's a little handheld needle and you can poke your fingers with it. You'll do your blood collection that way. And that's just to kind of familiarize yourself with capillary sticks, knowing like which fingers are the best and which areas of the finger are the best for capillary sticks. In that regard, you're going to be doing that procedure on yourself. After that, the next thing having to do with practical or hands-on experience is the venipuncture. And that will be, of course, after you go over at least that will be minimum after chapter 4, which is the chapter that we actually go through the venipuncture procedure. So you'll learn how to, I have them right here. You'll learn how to tie your tourniquet, and you'll learn like the proper preparation for venipuncture, the proper steps as in like introducing yourself, asking for consent, all of those different details you'll learn. And then after that, you can start poking. So I don't know about anyone else's phlebotomy training specialist course, but I know for us, we didn't have any dummies. We started practicing straight on our classmates, and so we actually did have like a demonstration, and then after that we just got going. The day before you actually start doing venipuncture, read the venipuncture procedure really well. I recommend reading chapters 2 and chapters 4 really well. You can quiz yourself, make Quizlets, whatever you need to do, but know those 2 chapters, because chapter 2, it will teach you your different veins, and it will teach you the ones that are recommended for blood draw and the ones that are like not as recommended, as in like the basilic vein, for example, seeing as it's near an artery, if that makes sense. After you do the venipuncture procedure for the first time, from that point forward, you'll be doing blood draws on your classmates up until you've reached minimum of 30 sticks. The course requires you to have a minimum of 30, but I will say that it's recommended that you have at least 55 if you plan on applying to jobs, because a lot of hospitals don't tend to hire newer phlebotomists with less experience, and having more successful draws increases your chances of getting hired by like a hospital or a lab. I will say that when you do your first draw, I recommend asking your instructor to be there watching you, so that you can get like, corrections in real time, and so that if you're making a mistake within your procedure, it can be caught immediately and you can rectify that. So let's go into our last portion of this video, which is going to be your final practical. Alright, so at least for my program, I don't know if it's the same state by state, but we were required to complete in our final practical 2 successful blood draws with the vacutainer and 2 successful blood draws with the butterfly needle, so totaling 4. I don't know how like the standardization is within this program, but I know in terms of where I was, we only had 10 butterfly needles in total, and so we would have 8 for successful blood draws, and then we would reserve 2 for the practical. And I know some people, they chose to buy butterfly needles off of like Amazon just so that they don't run out of the 8 because we were also required to have 8 successful butterflies and within our 33 total draws. So yeah, just so that you don't run out of needles. Some people did choose to buy needles from other websites, but they do have to be the same as the ones that you're using within your class. A vacutainer, well, a straight needle with a vacutainer. It looks like this. This is the safety, and then the needle is in there. And we're required to do 2 successful ones of these during our practical. I can put a butterfly needle on the screen here. I guess advice for the practical is that I would recommend practicing on like a classmate beforehand. We did it on each other, but you can also we also have the option to bring in like a family member or something like that. They would just have to like scan a QR code and it would like lead them to a waiver that they can sign off on. So yeah, what else? I would also recommend watching a lot of videos on the venipuncture procedure on TikTok or YouTube, because I know when we first got started, there wasn't as much, because we only had one instructor and there were like over 20 people in our class, and so it can be easy to kind of miss some steps or have mistakes that kind of stay consistent within your time in the class if it's not corrected. I would recommend watching those videos and see how they're doing it and read the comments to see how other people who have been in the field for a while would approach it. For an example, don't palpate the site and directly draw. You want to clean it again, because I know for like when you're starting out, it might be kind of nerve-wracking to feel like, oh, I don't know where the vein is, like I forgot where the vein is, and like you repalpate and then directly from repalpating you insert the needle. But you don't want to do that, because that can introduce like skin flora into your bloodstream, and that can be dangerous. And so just to avoid things like that, make sure that you're consistently trying to make efforts to improve and have the safest procedure as possible. Another thing I recommend is to know your order of draw, because at least within the class that I was in, we just had materials like a lot of our material, it was donated from like hospitals and they're like expired. And so there isn't as much emphasis on order of draw as we're doing our blood draws, because we're just practicing on each other. We're not drawing like large amounts of blood, and so we're not switching out the vials. And so I recommend that you at least understand the order of draw and understand the reasoning behind it, even if you're not actively doing it. Also, another thing, nearing the end of the course, so the last couple of days we had more of an emphasis on study material. So we had a practice exam, and it looked like this. It was 100 questions, and this is a really good resource. It has like exam-like questions, like certification exam-like questions, and it is really good to know what you should emphasize. I think that it's important to emphasize, like in your studying, like different like health organizations, so like OSHA, or like different like patient information protecting things like HIPAA. So just things like that, like organizations, I'd say really study those and understand them. And yeah, and then also there's a lot of questions about order of draw. Of course, you want to know your order of draw and the phlebotomy, like venipuncture procedure, and then also like possible reactions like petechiae or a hematoma or bruises or rashes, like stuff like that. I think that's about it. Alright, you guys, so that is it on my video on what to expect from your phlebotomy course. I hope that answered a lot of your questions, and if not, be sure to comment it down below and I'll be sure to give you an answer to the best of my abilities. I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you for watching.